So how you hire a new, I mean, not technically new, but how you sign an established coach with a well accumulated pedigree, won a championship, worked with illustrious franchises. That was around 15 years ago. Doc Rivers is absolutely dog shit awful. A team with a 31 and 13 record now has lost like what, 5 out of the last 6, and now fall third instead of number 1 in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks are only 2 games ahead, and they're in lost only 4 of their last 5 before the All-Star weekend. Doc Rivers has shown that he has no identity how to already coach a team that already has been around a completely different coach environment and play style, trying to be more of a wildly more offensive team. They came from down to the wire against the Detroit Pistons to not even win a game against a depleted, injury-riddled Memphis Grizzlies team that I swear the average age is around 18. This is their 3rd coach, and even their interim head coach out of Joe Prunty put up a better record than a 3-7 start for Doc Rivers. Absolutely atrocious, man. Thanasis Antetokounmpo I'm seeing even playing more. Malik Beasley just trucks over the ball and barely does anything. This is an ageful lineup. And over this whole deadline, all they did was just get cash consideration for a guy that plays more than Thanasis Antetokounmpo. They needed to heighten over on the youth or get more efficient guys that can play over the defensive wing, or at least guys that can score more efficiently than relying on just Dame and Giannis that could barely contribute that much on defense. No offense to Giannis, I know he's a great shot blocking big, but whenever you see him track out and just shot block, that's about it. The only decent perimeter bigs are not even playing on the starting 5 anymore, just so they can be a better defensive team. That means Portis subs, Marjan Bonchamp sits, Chris Middleton plays up the power forward role with Pat Connaughton. Then you see an old-ass Brooklyn, when there's better studs defensively than you can get at the center position. Nick Claxton's just sitting there. The Nets should have made bank. Nick Claxton, a couple of first rounds. This is a smaller market, ageful team, and they even play worse with a more decorated head coach than they were with a rookie coach. All because he lost the dressing room, and he was kind of scapegoated over by Doc Rivers just so he can get a job back because he was sick of gargling over on ESPN whenever he does commentary. Doc Rivers got to be probably the worst example of a scapegoating coach I've ever seen. Like, just think of Mike Tomlin. A guy that barely won anything to begin with, but you'll see him somehow in the playoffs, telling you guys that this team should be something that you should be afraid of, but you know it's a first round exit. You know it's a first round exit, and Doc Rivers did it. He barely could do it with the Los Angeles Clippers. He barely could do it with the Philadelphia 76ers. And now he barely got it done to even repeat with a team that he's coached to win at least one championship back in 2008. He couldn't even get it done with the Orlando Magic. With prime All-NBA players like Tracy McGrady, Grant Hill, Horace Grant. No, I don't think Horace Grant was playing around that year, but there was still some decent Magic squads. Like Pat Bev. Why, out of somebody a bit younger and that can facilitate more, why do you need a veteran floor general, journeyman, when you guys need defense? Over the perimeter game off the cheap. The Bucks will be a perennial 5th seed squad. It sucks, man. You think it's just Patrick Mutombo, Scott Faust needs to get the fuck. Everybody on that coaching staff needs to get out of here. This is possibly a worse situation than even the Monty Williams situation. And after the deadline, known like the Pistons obviously had to cut over dead weight after having probably the worst start in NBA history. This is just more important because, there was obvious holes in the Bucks squad when Adrian Griffin was coaching it, but it was his first time playing, and this is a completely different facilitator and guard that they're dealing with that, of course, is going to deplete what was happening when they were still coached by Budenholzer. So even though it was something new, they were still successing over it. and just struggling to still gel over in the first half of having an all NBA point guard that has to sacrifice over to be a more offensive team. We could totally get it. And if the Bucks were not going to make a win now state, they could at least try to get over a deep playoff run because they were just trying to escape out of losing in the first round as a top seed last season. And it's just over Doc Rivers' time. You couldn't even win against the fucking Blazers in Damian's time back. The freaking Trailblazers. Matisse Thybulle only dropped 0 points the game prior. You couldn't beat a Heat squad after losing Kyle Lowry. Jimmy Butler was sitting. He was injured. Timberwolves and Suns were expected, but the Utah Jazz with Larry Markkinen playing dropped like 20, and Colin Sexton dropped like 18. Embarrassing display, guys. The only respectable chance you guys had was somehow beating the Denver Nuggets. You guys haven't had a bigger winning streak since January 22nd. That's it. 3 games. And when Adrian Griffin was your head coach after the entire in-season tournament from your upset loss, you guys came around winning like what? 7 straight games with Griffin coaching. The longest streak Doc Rivers had since coaching, 2 games. You see the pattern here? Doc Rivers is a scapegoating coach with the bare minimum of a respectable resume, just holding over a recency bias that he's won a championship with an aging squad. We have an aging squad. Doc Rivers has worked with with enough name value. It should be a spoiled bitch with daddy's money. How Doc Rivers been able to accomplish very little with what seems like a lot of talent, like the Lob City days when they had Embiid and James Harden. Still with the big 3 with the Celtics, 1 championship. And he spans over 2 decades coaching in the NBA. And now they can barely facilitate over on offense. Perimeter defense is terrible. They have nothing to send over the high screening falls that Giannis cannot facilitate, and he's just a shot blocker. Malik Beasley has just drastically fallen over, and Damian Lillard just does absolutely nothing. On the defensive end of the floor, all they have to do is just try to chuck over shots, not attack over the perimeter game, and Damian Lillard's, of course, not going to attack over the basket. And now I feel like even the Detroit Pistons can beat them. The Memphis Grizzlies already proved that by double digits. They come over losing over a respectable 35-point margin against the freaking Heat. They're an embarrassment. And come All-Star break, it's going to get worse. They're back around the 23rd, and they're still going to continue the three-game road stretch, where they're going to get back-to-back petty wins against the Hornets to try to build over the momentum. Guys, we're over halfway through with the season. This is the 3rd head coach a top-seeding Eastern Conference squad has gotten. If they're over in the last legs and Giannis just ruins over his legacy, possibly with his terrible control over the Milwaukee Bucks organization, trying to ask too much with very little even proceeded with him, at least he still got Thanasis. Damian's exumptuous contract, knowing that the Bucks are going high water into hell. Malik Beasley just shaking his cheeks whenever he makes one out of his 20 shots from the corner. Brook Lopez dying out there, and Bobby Portis just waiting for the Olympics again. This is just an embarrassing way for the Bucks to end out, because I run a root for the Bucks. I wouldn't mind Giannis winning another championship. I feel like he's a great dominant player around at least top 5 in the NBA right now. Top 3 in the NBA right now. But the way that they're just sending over, just performing recently, and even performing a majority of the season, around the off-season, it already shows that this is just a sinking ship of any championship chances right now. And the only legitimate contenders, technically speaking, hell, I can even put the Clippers up there. It's either the Miami Heat, Denver Nuggets, possibly the Boston Celtics. Cleveland Cavaliers have been playing some good basketball, and as soon as the Knicks get back healthy, and the Sixers, we got some competition. Bucks are just declining as soon as the season goes on. If Doc Rivers doesn't really fix it, I want them to prove me wrong. That's the worst thing. I want them to prove me wrong, but they're proving the whole media right that Doc Rivers is an underachieving, overrated coach. Giannis is an over-the-top, whiny, lanky drama queen. Damian Lillard's nothing but a playoff disappointment when it matters the most, and he hasn't even had a productive season to even deserve all-star selection over Trae Young, that's averaging even more points in shot creation and efficiency than him. Dame should be kicked out of the starting rotation over the All-Star break. It's an insult that Trae Young's even in injury reserve the way he's been performing and put over more winning aspects for the Hawks team that he's leading. It's embarrassing. No offense, but that's how it is, in my opinion. The Bucks are going to be possibly a second round or first round exit, even if they go over a 10-game, 8-game winning streak around the second half of the season, and it's possibly going to be injuries, and we're still going to scapegoat over everything except the Bucks' overall performance, that they're just not good enough to contend. Hook, line, and sinker. There's been better veteran teams with a more orchestrated locker room. If you guys haven't seen veteran teams that won championships with doubt amongst them, San Antonio Spurs, Golden State Warriors. I know the Golden State Warriors had like the fourth youngest team, except Draymond, Clay, and Curry, when they won it back in 2022. But there's been aging teams with doubt in them, but still played organized, well accumulated basketball. So it just boggles my mind. As soon as I heard Doc Rivers, and I'm sure a bunch of fans hearing Doc Rivers' name pull up in the middle of the NBA media, there wasn't an immediate. I think most people, as soon as they heard of that, oh, that's tough. I had Milwaukee winning the championship this year. Sucks that they're going to be a second round exit. Like, come on, son. That's embarrassing. Tell me how you guys feel about this whole role. Am I being too overly judgmental, or you feel like the criticism is for the point? Because I'm just losing a lot of patience, knowing how this Bucks team comes from overall contender with an all-star behind Giannis to just having an underwhelming coaching structure and just a dodgy front office with a drama queen top star. That's it for me.